that. We're going to present it. Okay, so what we're going to be going over in 5.03 and 5.04 is physical systems and processes of Western Europe, and then also the people culture of Western Europe. And I talked about last time in the live class how much I love kind of the culture there. Food's fantastic. They have a whole bunch of different food, a whole bunch of different cultures, all the way from the Mediterranean culture where you're like olives and I'm trying to think, pasta for Italy, pizza, you know, all of that stuff, the original stuff of where it came from, all the way to fish and chips in England, and they have a Mediterranean or an Indian influence. They have really good curries, kebabs. They eat a lot of lamb. So fascinating stuff. I love it all. Love to travel. All right. So here's going to be your objectives, types of food in the region, all of that stuff. This is what you're going to be going over in your as you're going through your lessons and your tutorials. So as we talked about the diverseness of Western Europe, as you see right here, here's a picture of Spain. Very beautiful area there, more Mediterranean. So it's kind of like your Southern California or your Florida. That's the Mediterranean climate. You know, a place that you want to go vacation for sure. Then you have more highlands, as you can see right here. This would be probably in like Wales area or upper highlands of Scotland. This, I believe, is some mountains more like in the Alps. Okay, that leads us to a poll question here. Hopefully you can see that. It looks like it's kind of cut off a little bit. Sorry about that. Okay, it says, what is a peninsula? Okay, is it A, land in the middle of the ocean, B, land surrounded by other land, C, land surrounded by three sides by water, or D, landlocked land without any water? Okay, I'll give you a second to think about that. And the correct answer is C, land surrounded by three sides by water. They call Europe the land of many peninsulas. And the reason is because they have a lot of peninsulas. As you can see right here, if you just follow my cursor here, over here we have Spain and Portugal, which make up what's called the Iberian Peninsula. So that's right there. You have the Italian Peninsula, which is right here, which is Italy, San Marino, Vatican City, that kind of stuff, those countries right there. Then you have the Balkan Peninsula, which is Greece, okay, Croatia over there. If you go all the way over here, you have the Crimean Peninsula, which is part of Ukraine. And then up here you have the Scandinavian Peninsula, which is Sweden and Norway, up this way. And they didn't do this one, but they have Denmark right here. This is the Jutland Peninsula right here. So Denmark lies right here, okay? So as you can see, and the whole thing really looks like a peninsula, three sides covered by waters. But those are the main peninsulas you will find on in Europe. Okay, let's go to another poll question real quick. Which river is the longest river in Europe? Would it be A, the Rhines, B, the Po, C, the Danube, or D, the Thames? And the correct answer is the Danube, okay? The Danube River is the longest river. It goes all the way from the Black Sea, starts actually right over here in the middle of Germany in the Alps, and goes all the way down throughout all the countries there and empties into the Black Sea. You also have what's called the Rhine River. Okay, the Rhine River comes up here. It flows from the Alps and then also out into this area in the North Sea up here. This is almost like their Mississippi River. If we think about our Mississippi River that goes through the United States, it's used for trade and stuff. So you think about the steamboats that came up and down the Mississippi River. The Rhine River was the same way, okay? Sorry about that. Hold on. The Rhine River was the same way. They had steamboats that would go up and down it. You have the Po, which is the little river through here. The Thames, which is a famous river in Great Britain, runs right here in the England area. As we kind of look over here and look at the different temperatures and areas, as you follow my cursor, a lot of it is what we call more a cool tempered forest. So that's a lot of your Germany, a lot of France, that kind of stuff. It rains a lot there, very green. You don't really have to have a sprinkling system like you do here in Utah to get your grass to grow because of how cool it is and how much moisture is in the air. You can kind of have the Mediterranean area, which is right here. This is where the picture of the beautiful water and that kind of stuff. So on that coastal area, you have the dry steppe, which is over here more by like Ukraine and those kind of areas. That's kind of the Utah-like weather, right? A ways away from the ocean, dry, sagebrushy, that kind of stuff. And then you get up here into like Lithuania, those areas. You're going to have a lot more trees like pine trees, evergreen trees, up in this area. And then you also have a little bit of tundra, which you're talking about very ice covered, that kind of stuff. So very diverse. As you think of what they use it for, agriculture and livestock, as you can see, livestock area is in the red area. They have a little bit of logging, and that's where you would find, as you look at the other picture before that we just did, the other map of where the evergreens are and stuff like that, that's where your logging would come from. They don't have a lot of logging, as I mentioned yesterday. Some areas have been lived in for so long, they don't have any trees or anything like that to be able to use as building material. So you have crops that only grow in certain areas. So these areas would be the crops where you can see my cursor right now. They do have what's called the North European plain that kind of comes through, and that's the fertile land where they can actually grow crops. So if you think about it, they're probably importing a lot of their food from different areas. Okay, we're going to watch a little video real quick. This is on the an area near Italy that had a volcanic eruption of Mount Venus. And it's kind of interesting because it helps us understand what the culture was like of the people back at that time. Okay, actually, let me move this up a little bit so you can. So it was an entire city, and you'll see what happened as you watch this video. It's pretty interesting. All right, so that was, hope I can move my face back up here. It's not working. All right, well, I think you can't see my face anymore because I moved it off the screen and I lost it. But just talking about the volcano real quick. So we're seeing some eruptions right now in Hawaii, right? Kind of the same aspect of things. But what happened at Plamoti was that it just blew a big, huge ash and everything that came up. And what happened is it just covered the whole entire city. And so archaeologists have been able to go and unbury it and see exactly what life was like back at that time. But it's amazing what nature has done. But we were able to figure out how sophisticated their society was because of that. We figured out buildings and stuff like that because the ash that laid on top of it, it just preserved everything. So we can really kind of understand a little bit what life was like back at that point in time. All right, so now we're going to move on to more of the people and the culture of Western Europe. So we're going to analyze the different ancient civilizations at that point in time, compare and contrast the Athenian culture compared to the Spartan civilization, political factors that have happened in that area, and how it was set up there, and then what's going on at this current time. All right, so let's now talk about the Athenian culture. Okay, so the Athenian culture is what we think of more of typical Greece. We talked about them a little bit last time, that that culture, they were the first ones to start the Olympics. They were also polytheistic, which means they believed in more than one god. Think about Zeus, Hades, Hercules, that kind of stuff. So they were very big into those things. They had plays that they would do. You kind of see down here where the people would get together. The government was ran by the people, so they had different classes, right? So for the first time in history before, they always usually were ran by kings, okay? And so the kings would basically just rule everything. But this was kind of the first time the people had a lot of class to be able to do that. And you can kind of see some of their temples that they made to their gods and those sort of things. The Spartans, or in Sparta, it was a lot different. You can kind of see where that was. They were pretty close by each other. So you have Athens, which is right here, the capital city, and then you had the Sparta, which is by there. They were huge warriors, okay? They were ruled by a king, and raising strong people was a huge thing to them, protecting themselves, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to go and compare and contrast them real quick. So let's talk about these two things. So we have a diagram right here, a Venn diagram, and so we have the two circles, and what was in between is what they have in common. On the outside is what they don't. So in Athens, they were trained to be good citizens is utmost importance. Okay, boys taught their fathers trade, or boys taught their father's trade. So like if you were a blacksmith, you were a blacksmith. You know, if you were a farmer, you were a farmer. So you'd learn that way to be a good member of society. Family is the most important thing in Athens. Girls were taught to be good mothers, and that's how that was there. In Sparta, physical strength is valued above all else. So how much you can pick up, you know, big a rock you can pick up, you know, how much weight can you lift, can you beat each other up. Boys were actually taught to steal, right? Whatever you have to do to survive. That was what you do. Most important rule for women is to bear strong sons. Okay, girls were taught to read and write and be strong. Okay, boys learned to read and write at the starting of age 6 or 7, so that happened with both of them. So they did have an educated population, both of them. Also, boys were required to do military service, and that was something that was very big to protect that area. So you can kind of see the difference between the two cultures, and they're not that far apart geographical-wise. So moving over more into Europe, the way things were set up, they were set up like this. Now, basically the king of all kings at the time in the Middle Ages was the Pope. Okay, the Pope was the leader of the Catholic Church, and Catholicism reigned around all of the land. And those that were the highest on there were called the feudal lords. They were basically the kings. Okay. So why would you want to be under a feudal lord? Well, one, they would give you protection. So if you were a peasant, the one down here, which is your farmers, your, the people that live in the city, you kind of think about it. You have your castle, right, that you see in movies. You have your feudal lord, which is your king and queen and their family. And then you have his knights, which were other upper class that protect the king and protect everybody else, the peasants. And then you had the peasants that were the servants, basically, to the king. And that's how it was set up throughout all of Europe. And they did that because of protection. They didn't have good laws. You have a lot of lawlessness that was running around. So people would go around and steal from place to place. And if you were under a feudal lord in this kingdom, you were protected by the knights. And as long as you did what they said, you paid your taxes, you went to church, you did what you were supposed to do. And that is basically for centuries and centuries how Europe was ran, the governmental system. Now the governmental system is quite a bit different. It has led more to a republic kind of form of government. Most of them run what's called parliamentary systems, which is a hybrid to kind of the system we have in the United States. You have a parliament, which is like our Congress, but they also hold the executive branch as well. The majority does. So things actually can change a lot faster in a lot of Europe countries rather than here. One thing that they have done, because there are so many small countries over there, is they've tried to make an organization which is called a supernation, which is called the European Union, or the EU. The organization started in 1951, more of an economic thing, so being able to trade back and forth and help each other out that way. They also, in the early 90s, they started their own form of common currency called the euro. So when you're traveling throughout Europe, you can actually just use one form of money and not have to change it for every country you go to. So it's really helpful on traveling there. This has allowed people to immigrate from one country to the next, but as you can imagine, it's caused a lot of problems as well. So for example, a lot of Eastern European countries, because they were under the rule of the USSR, or what we know today as kind of Russia, and had a communist government, and they didn't have a very good economy, they went and came all the way over to some of the more Western European countries, like France and Germany and England, and that didn't make those countries very happy because that burden of those people kind of fell upon them. So now you're seeing countries that are pulling out of the European Union, like the UK. So England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland are going out of the European Union because of these issues. And it's hard to have all these things coming in. A lot of things that are happening too is a lot of refugees are coming from the Middle East and Northern Africa, and they're flowing into the European Union, and the European Union is taking care of these people, which is very nice of them, but it's causing a big burden on a lot of the countries that they don't have some more taxes for the people that are living there. So that is where we stand right now on Europe, of what they are. So we'll have our live lesson next Wednesday. Here is your exit ticket. Make sure you fill that out. And this is your lesson for today. Make sure you do the quizzes. And thank you. We'll see you on Wednesday.